Hi foodies, welcome back. Today I'm doing another shop and cook with me, and we're making none other than Nigerian beef stew. Today we're shopping at HEB, so come shopping with me, and as always don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. I'm going to start from the produce department, and the first thing on my list is bell peppers. For bell peppers, I always make sure I pick the reddest and biggest ones, especially in stores where they are all the same price. So I make sure to get the biggest bell peppers to get more value for my money. Next thing on the list is the tomato. Just like the bell peppers, I always make sure I pick the ripest and reddest tomatoes. Remember, the best stew always starts with the best ingredients. I'm going to quickly grab garlic and also ginger. Look at how big this ginger is. I don't need this much. I'm just going to grab a smaller one and then we'll get going. Next thing on the list is onion. I just need a couple of those and then I'll move to the meat department. For my stew, I like to use this cut of meat. It's called tri-tip roast. I also like to add some neck bones just to give it a little contrast. I'll get that in the basket and then go get my spices. For spices, I'm keeping it simple and classic and just getting thyme and curry powder. In the last cook and shop video I did for jollof rice, I showed this little Nigerian session. It's so cool. You can get so many Nigerian ingredients like maggi, knorr, gari, fufu, so much more. And I just love seeing this at HEB. Next, I'll grab a bottle of oil, and as I was about checking out, I remember that HEB has bulk spices, so I went back and returned the curry powder and thyme I bought earlier, and I'm just going to measure this out because it's so much more cheaper to get them from here. I got around the same quantity as the prepackaged one, and the thyme came up to just 26 cents and the curry powder was just short of $1. So compared to the prepackaged ones, it's less than half the amount, probably because the bottles aren't included, but I have lots of spice bottles at home. I'm done with the shopping part. Everything came up to around $46, just short of $50. Obviously, I'm not using everything for this stew, like the oil, I'm going to use it multiple times. So, not too bad in terms of cost. It's a beautiful day today, and I'm excited to go back home and start cooking. So, I'm going to pop everything in the trunk, return my cards, and it's bye bye HEB for now. We're back home, and first I'm going to wash my hands to get all of those outside germs out, and we're going to start cooking the stew. I've gone ahead and cut the meat as well as prep the other ingredients so we can go straight to cooking. I'll add the meat to a pot and then season with some chopped onions, thyme, smashed garlic and ginger, curry powder, salt, some beef seasoning cubes and a little water. I'll give this a good mix and then let the meat steam for about 15 to 20 minutes or until the meat is soft. While the meat is cooking, I'll go ahead and prepare the pepper base. To make Nigerian stew, you need the right ratio for the pepper base. I always use about 50% bell peppers, 40% tomatoes, 5% peppers, and 5% onions. The pepper over here is super spicy. You only need one, maximum two, but I like the taste of pepper, so I like to use more, so I always take out the seeds and veins so that makes them less spicy. And I always use gloves when washing my pepper because it leaves that peppery sensation in my hands if I use my bare hands to wash them. So if that also happens to you, always wear gloves before handling a taro or pepper. Go ahead and add everything to the blender and blend until smooth. Next, check on the meat. The meat should be fully cooked now, so I'm going to take it out and separate it from the stock. The prep work is nearly finished, I promise. I'm going to go ahead and set the meat aside and then filter the meat stock just to get rid of any bones or large pieces of garlic or ginger. Sieving the meat stock is optional, but if the meat you're using has bones, I always recommend it just to be safe. I'll set the meat stock aside. We're going to be using that later. Now, to a large pot, I usually just use the same pot I use in boiling the meat for easier cleanup. I'll add the blended pepper mix and allow this reduce for about 40 minutes until most of the water has evaporated. And for stew, the pepper mix doesn't have to be fully reduced, just boil until it's thick enough and most of the sour taste from the tomatoes has left. In a separate wide pot, I'll heat up some oil, and when the oil is hot enough, I'll add the beef. When making stew, I like to fry just half of the beef I'm using and leave the rest boiled. It just gives the stew like a nice contrast. So if you like the boiled meat, you pick the boiled meat. If you prefer the fried, you can use the fried. When the meat is done, I'll take that out and then add some chopped onions to the oil. Fry that until it's nice and fragrant, and then add the boiled down pepper mix. Some people like to add tomato paste to their stew. I'm not really a fan of tomato paste. I don't like how it tastes in stew, and I can always tell when it's added. But if you like it, by all means add it. Just make sure you fry the tomato paste really well to get rid of that sour taste before you add your pepper mix. I've added some seasoning, curry, thyme, beef seasoning cube, and a little salt. I'm not going to add too much salt now because I'm still going to be adding the meat stock and I don't want the stew to be too salty. I'll allow that fry for a bit. If it's splashing, you can just cover the stew halfway so it can continue frying instead of steaming, and remember to turn it from time to time so it doesn't burn. At this point, I'm ready to add my meat stock. Personally, I don't like my stew to be too dry, so I just like it to be a bit fried. But if you like dry stew, continue frying until it looks very dry before adding the meat stock. After adding the meat stock, I'll give this a good mix and then allow to simmer for about 10 to 15 minutes on low heat. You know your stew is almost ready when the oil starts to float. Now's the time to add the cooked beef. After adding the meat, give it another mix, and at this point you want to taste the stew and adjust the seasoning if needed. Allow to cook for just about 5 more minutes, and while it's cooking, go ahead and boil your rice. I always do this when the stew is halfway done so everything gets ready together. My stew is finally ready. I'm going to go ahead and serve this with my rice because I'm really hungry. Let me know what you think about this video and if you found it helpful. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave me one in the comment section or send me a DM on Instagram. My Instagram name is Kiki Foodies. The full recipe will be in the description box, so make sure you check that out. You can also find a written detailed recipe on my website, which is kikifoodies.com. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already, and if you're already subscribed to my channel, thank you so much for subscribing, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.